irreconcilable today. We've heard the term irreconcilable differences because it's the term associated with the inability of two parties to agree on most things or important things. We often hear this term in the context of divorce, marriages that don't work out. And this term can be used to signify that the marriage is dead and it just can't be saved. Now, leading up to this point, there were probably a multitude of conversations that should have been had and probably weren't had. And as the pressure and the stress time and the distance increases between the individuals, the relationship begins to decay and reaches ultimately that point of death. And because of the non-confrontational nature that many of us possess, critical and crucial conversations are often skipped in various relationships that we engage in. Now, Santita, I will admit that it can take a lot of courage to initiate and conduct these conversations. But if you desire to deepen your relationships, difficult conversations are going to have to be had. And hopefully, tuning in today to this good news will boost not only your courage, but also your skill set in conducting these crucial conversations. Now, let me give you some tips on this. Before you begin a difficult conversation, it can be helpful to decide, number one, what you want to achieve from the conversation. And then number two, what your response will be if you don't achieve the outcome that you desire. It's important to cover these two things up front because it will be difficult to get what you want if you're less than sure what that actually is. All right, now that we've covered that foundational mindset and understanding, let me share some tips on how to get started. Now, let me talk to the ladies first because I want to help you all to not do something that ladies typically tend to do, Santita, that gets you in trouble from the jump. That dreaded phrase that some of you all use, we need to talk, don't do it. That setup is going to get you nowhere. Let me give you some palatable options to initiate those much-needed conversations. Number one, option one, hey, I have something I'd like to discuss with you that I think will help us work together more effectively, and then go into the conversation. Option two, I'd like to talk about X with you, but first, I'd like to get your point of view. Option number three, hey, I need your help with what just happened between us. Option number four, I think we have different perspectives on X, and I'd love to hear your thinking on this. Please replace one of those four options with we just need to talk, because we just need to talk is not going to get you into talking. Now, no matter how well the conversations begin, you need to stay in charge of yourself, your purpose, and your emotional energy. The majority of the work in any conflict conversation is the work you'll do on yourself. And so now that we've got the introduction part down and we're getting into the conversation, your question is, well, Stephen, what do I say next? Because I've got to have one of these conversations today when I get to work. I've got to have one of these conversations with my kids later on today or with my spouse. Gotcha. I got you covered. First thing that needs to be there is inquiry. Cultivate an attitude of discovery and curiosity as you engage in the body of the conversation. Because the goal is to try to learn as much about them and their point of view as possible. What is it that they really want out of this? What are they not saying to you? You have to let them talk without interrupting so that you can get this information. Not only does there need to be inquiry, there needs to be acknowledgement. Show that you've heard them and understand them. They need to see that you see where they stand to keep them engaged in the conversation. And be sure to keep acknowledgement and agreement separate. Let me say that again. Be sure to keep acknowledgement of what they said and agreement with what they said separate. Number three, there has to be advocacy. Help clarify your position without minimizing theirs. And here's the question that I ask. What can you see from your perspective that they missed that would be helpful to share? Fourth and finally, there has to be the idea and the impetus towards problem solving. The outcome is more satisfying to everybody if both parties decide on what they would find acceptable as a result. The more emotional laden the conversation, the more important it is that you agree on goals that preserve each other's emotional well-being. And if you find that the conversation is becoming adversarial, shift back to a place of inquiry. Just start asking more questions to fully understand their lens, their perspective, and their point of view. Seeking their point of view will create safety and encourage them to stay engaged in the conversation. Now, learning to work your way through conflict in a relational, respectful, and optimistic manner, it can lead to a significant improvement in overall relationship satisfaction. And be mindful in the midst of these conversations to acknowledge the emotional energy, not assume that the other person can see things from your point of view, and finally, know and return your purpose at those return to your purpose at those difficult moments as the conversation progresses. The idea today that we want to leave with is that we can reconcile the irreconcilable. I hope that y'all have an amazing day.
Blessings to you, sending you so much love. It's a negotiation always. Oh, these men. But you know what? You got to make it work. I mean, boy, talk about concrete. Oh, my word. Oh, man. Facebook Live, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time on Friday. And mirror moments can be gotten on your website. What is that again?
Stephen with the PH, StephenJThurston.com.
Thank you so much. Sending you so much love. It's a negotiation. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. That is true. Dr. Shanita Knighton, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am doing well. If you don't mind, I'm going to keep you for a couple of minutes on the other side. But just before we go to this break and you give us, about 3 or 4 minutes on the other side, what do you want to talk about today?
So good morning. First and foremost, I just want to say happy birthday to you.
Wait a minute, thank you. For all the people carrying the AARP cards. What? Yes. But you know what? And guess what? Really taking care of yourself. Someone said to me yesterday, I know why you don't mind telling your age. I said, why is that? Because you don't look it. I said, I think people look their ages, but they just look good for their ages. You got to take care of yourself. And I'll take that. I have genetics on my side. That having been said, you got to take care of yourselves, everybody. That's another lecture for us, Dr. Knighton. Taking good care of yourself. I had surgery some years ago, and this was very traumatizing for my whole family. I never want that kind of experience. I would never want to put them through that kind of pain again. That having been said, I was ill. And so the doctor said, wow. He showed my mother pictures of my pancreas and some organs. He said, she's got the pancreas of a kindergartner. My mother still has that picture. She never gave it to me, Dr. Knighton. I said, well, may I have it? She said, no, this is my picture. Get your own. Oh, man. But, owing to the fact that I'm not a drinker at all and all of that, I think that was part of it. And I've never done drugs or anything like that. I'm not slamming anyone else who does, because you know what? Hey, we all self-medicate. I'm medicated with food. We all gossip. People do. I don't do that, but it's all of that. So just take care of yourself, everybody. And thank you for the wonderful birthday wishes. I got some wonderful, wonderful wishes and lots of flowers. Love it. Dr. Shanita Knighton. And a call from Dr. Knighton, but I was in a meeting. I couldn't answer it. I love you, Dr. Knighton. Stay right there. I'm going to get some thoughts from her on infection prevention and our health. Be the CEO of your health, right on the other side. And also Dr. Julian Malveaux talking about financial literacy on the Santita Jackson Show. Back in just a few minutes. Hey, girl, thank you for calling me yesterday. But our convention really began in earnest. And my friend, I was moving like you would not believe. I feel it this morning.
I can only imagine.
Whew.
Yeah.
I feel it today. Feel it. Feel it, feel it. I do. I feel it.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yep. So I can only imagine. What was I getting ready to say? Look, look, we know you popular. The voicemail was full. I said I can't even leave her a verbal message.
I know. I cleaned it out several times. It was so sweet. And and I received some wonderful messages from people, I guess from really unexpected places because I got a lot of texts because my voicemail was full, and I really couldn't clean it out because it was just I just had a lot. We had a lot going on because our convention began. And I do hope that everyone will be coming to the financial literacy seminar. I can't wait to talk about that, but. It was a real blessing. My father said, if you don't like birthdays, try missing. I said, well, Daddy, I like birthdays. He said, yeah. Uh-huh. That's right. That's right. That's right. And so there's that. There is that. There is that. But how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm actually, my birthday is on Friday.
Hello.
So, yeah.
So what you gonna do?
Season.
Check the levels on. Still no answer from Miss Wells.
Trip right now, and it's free. There's noise, and it's just wonderful.
Oh, girl, I am so happy for you.
Yeah. So
I am happy for you. Just have some fun.
Yeah, I am, and it's nothing like I'm one of those people that like to sit in peace and just sit in quiet and. Not have to cook or do anything extra, but just really just be, But
I was telling one of my best friends was in town. She is in town, and she came in. Basically, our families are very close. She brought her father in, and she said, "I just feel so sad that we couldn't have that party." I said, "Girl, number one, I don't have time for a party." And she said, "I said, you're here." I said, we can do something another time. I said, but you're here. We have reminisced, and she is one of the people in my life who makes my head falls back and we laugh real hard. You have those friends. She is that friend for me. Someone who makes me go, oh no, did you just say that? He was like, yes, I did. And oh yeah, we had a great time. Had a great time. And I saw most of my family yesterday. Talked to people. I was able to give my mom and dad a hug and kiss. How about that?
Yep, that's it, and it don't get any better than.
Do you understand what I'm trying to say? And to that, hey, Dr. Malvo, how you doing? Dr. Malvo?
Good morning. How are you?
Hey.
I'm here.
Doing great. Plus, I got a chance to hear Julianne Malvo cut the nut yesterday at the education. Oh, gosh. I said, here she goes.
30 seconds.
And then you always look so mystified when people go, what did she just say? What'd she do? Oh, gosh, we love Dr. Malvo. It's just crazy. Dr. Malvo, we have got to do something to continue to increase the profile of Dr. Shanina Knighton. We need our infection preventionists.
10 seconds.
Oh, we absolutely do.
We really do. And
we need to.
And you got to highlight her
Stand
story.
by.
Got to highlight
it. Well, I'd like to know more about it.
I want to know.
Change the world. Change the world. We can change the world. We can change the world. Change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
More and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Got Dr. Malvo talking to us about financial literacy this morning and this afternoon at the Financial Literacy Panel at the Rainbow Push International Conference, which will be at the Rubenstein Center at the University of Chicago at 1201 East 60th. It's really 60th and the Midway, 60th Street and the Midway. It's a beautiful facility, and we've had a wonderful, wonderful time there. It's Nelson Mandela International Day. What is that holiday? We're going to be talking with the first woman premier of the KwaZulu-Natal province. and she's making history and cannot wait to speak with her. And of course, John Nichols is going to be talking to us about this Screen Actors Guild um, strike. The writers and the actors are on strike. It's brought Hollywood to a halt. I mean, Dr. Malvo, they want to pay actors $182 to scan their images, get their voices, and use them any way they choose. I mean, it's horrible. Before I pivot to you, let me go to Dr. Shanina Knighton, just by way of information. Dr. Knighton, I'm going to give you about 5 minutes. That having been said, Dr. Malvo, of course, is one of our most esteemed academics and activists, and really opinion. Really, she's a brilliant essayist. She does so much. MIT trained PhD. That having been said, she is also the president emeritus of Bennett College for Women and the outgoing dean of the College of Ethnic Studies at Cal State, Los Angeles. Brilliant, brilliant academic, author, all of that. That having been said, I wanted her to meet you because Dr. Shanina Knighton is also a miracle doctor. Dr. Malvo. She is not 40. She is the first person in her college to get a high school diploma, let alone a PhD. She's a registered nurse. She's been a college lecturer. Yeah. And she's one of the few infection preventionists in the world. There are more than 8 billion people. There are about 60,000 of you worldwide? Dr. Knighton?
30. So, yes, about 60,000, 35,000 as a part of the organization that I'm a part of. Mm-hmm.
She is someone who wants us, number one, to change the baseline so that we can not use sickness, she said, should not be the baseline. Health should be. And you need to be the CEO of your health, which is very empowering. And I want her to meet you because I think we, and particularly you in the academic space, we have an opportunity and we have the obligation to lift her up so that people know that she exists and that more and more people find out about what she does. Because when you listen to the advice that she was able to render on this show at the height of the pandemic, it was life-saving and life-changing. So having introduced the two of you, I'm going to introduce you more formally offline. But Dr. Knighton, what would you like to speak about today?
So it's interesting, Santita, because I was actually going to and I'll still do this maybe for 1 minute, but then just really talk to Dr. Malvo about my other area of interest and work around hygiene poverty. But before even talking about hygiene poverty, especially because the thing is that the air quality issues have not gone away. They have not gone away. We're still experiencing them here in the Midwest in regard to the index being bad, even though we don't see it plastered all over the news. So one of the things that I just want to talk about briefly is just, I would say, car safety, more so about the air recirculation button in the car and what it does. And so any other time, during COVID, I've made the recommendation of making sure that the windows are down so you can utilize the outside air to have good ventilation. And then on top of using the outside air to be able to have good ventilation, it would be more so that way the droplet particles would move. In this particular instance, especially in areas where you know that the air quality index is bad, using the reverse, which is keeping the air recirculation button on, can effectively cut off some of the outside air from coming inside of the car. And so while it is not the best feature, let's say, to remove all of the outside air, when you're trying to eliminate some of the challenges that we're having right now, especially with people with respiratory issues, whether that's asthma, whether that's chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or some sort of other lung disease, or even, let's say, allergies, it is an option that can help to minimize some of that air travel that may have a negative effect on you. Pivoting just really quickly in talking about hygiene poverty, Dr. Malvo, what me and Santita, look, I'm calling her doctor, have been talking about for some time now is just the fact that people do not correlate infection prevention and control with hygiene poverty. How this particularly even relates to finances with defining hygiene poverty is people's inability to afford things that can keep them safe from infections. So if we're talking about someone that cannot afford, let's say, deodorant, someone that can't afford soap, as a result of not being able to afford soap, that leading to a buildup of germs on the skin that could potentially lead to an abscess or a boil that can become infected. Women and girls not being able to afford menstrual items. So as a result of that, ending up at more of a risk for UTIs and other illnesses as a result of not having appropriate items. Healthcare workers not having access to, let's say, a washing machine or adequate detergent, so therefore their uniforms that they wear after caring for people that have antibiotic-resistant organisms then may be traveled home without them being able to do much about it, which then means that they put their family at risk of being sick. So it's a multi-layered problem, and as we know, we might have resources within the neighborhood, but if people cannot afford them because they're spending the majority of their money on having to live, then these important items get missed and people are unable to keep their environment clean as well as their bodies clean, therefore increasing the risk for infections. And so the research that I'm doing is in hopes to, at some point, be able to subsidize those materials that people need, and not only just looking at it from that aspect of it, be able to put it on the radar to where we understand why are these things still being taxed when they should probably be in the same category as food because they are essential to the safe living.
Dr. Shanina Knighton, everybody. She's so brilliant, and she brings this kind of information to us every single day, Dr. Malveaux. We've got to lift her up and bring her into the light so that infection prevention can be in our consciousness. It took 2 or 3 years into this pandemic for us to even talk about infection prevention because everybody did not have to get COVID, and you could survive it. But she also talks about making sure that your immune system, which is incredibly strong. It's a gift from God. You got to know it, but you got to boost it so that when infection comes your way, if it comes your way, your body can fight it. Dr. Shanina Knighton, that's Hey Dr. Nina, HEYDRNINA. We love you so much. So glad that you all have connected, you and Dr. Malveaux, and we're going to make this happen because we're going to do some other things with you. Dr. Julianne Malveaux, brilliant economist, MIT trained economist, and of course, firebrand. We just love her. I love the fact that she's taken all these stellar credentials. And of course, Dr. Knighton, she frightens everybody to death. You don't know what she's going to say. She's impolitic as she wants to be, but I love it. Because what she does is speak truth to power. And she'll get in the room and she's like, no, this is your perception, your understanding of the lived experience of people who've been born and who live under the yoke of oppression, who live under the boot. You're wrong. And so today she's going to be part of this financial literacy seminar that we're having. Of course, Joan Esposito will be hosting her show live at the Rubenstein Forum at 60th and the Midway, right on the campus of the University of Chicago. It's a beautiful facility, and we've had a great time there. But talk to me, Dr. Malveaux, first of all, what is financial literacy? And is it necessary? We don't mind spending money, but no one balances a checkbook anymore, right? It's just, we have ATMs now, so you can run out of money and go get some more.
And this is a problem. Financial literacy is just knowing about finances, knowing about money, and the most important thing to know about is your own money. But I tell you, there's so many people who can't tell you how much money they have in their checking account or in their account. We don't really do checking as much as we used to. It's all electronic. I fear that the electronic way of looking at things often makes it too easy for people. So you got a budget. You say that you're going to spend X number of dollars, a week on lunch. And maybe that means you're going to bring your lunch a couple of days and you're going to eat out a couple of days. But one of your coworkers says, gee, let's go have lunch at that hot place around the corner. And your mind says, but I don't have the money. I didn't budget for that. But your spirit says, I want to hang out with my friends. And so you don't have the cash. You stop at ATM. You don't look at what you have. It's just become too easy to be financially irresponsible. And so many of us are. We live in a culture, I call it sport shopping. You feel good, you buy. You feel bad, you buy. You get a new man, so you want to buy new clothes for the new man. You break up with the man, so you got to get some new clothes to make you feel better. Your car, you want a new car. You don't need one, but you want a new car. And then when you get the new car, you want all the accessories. And you're not thinking about what's going on. Then meanwhile, back at the ranch, you be aware your credit score is like your adult report card. Your credit score can range from a low of 650 to a high of 850. And the higher it is, the easier it is for you to get loans, for you to get a good interest rate when you buy that car you want. But if you got a low credit score, you're going to have a high interest rate. And you're going to have difficulty basically getting credit. And you don't need credit for credit's sake. But you need credit, let's say, because you have an emergency. You don't want to have to go, girl, I walked up on some sisters the other day who had the sister reached into her brassiere to pull out the cash to register for a hotel because she didn't have a credit card. I'm sitting here saying, who in 2023 does not have a credit card? Where's the answer? Somebody with bad credit. You need credit for ease. There's so many things you can't do if you don't have you can't rent a car if you don't have a credit card. But if you have a poor credit, it's going to be hard for you to get a credit card. So, we just need to know more, and we need to approach our money really like tacticians to say, this is what God has blessed me with. What am I going to do with it to his glory and to her honor? In other words, what are you going to do with your blessings to ensure that there's social and economic justice? Who do you contribute to? People talk about tithing, but very few people really tithe anymore. People treat church like it's entertainment, and you're paying an entertainment fee. If you don't go to church, you don't necessarily tithe. So we need to know about all that. How do our institutions like Rainbow Push, like the NAACP, like others, how do they survive? They survive partially on our contributions. Are we contributing? Years ago, I wrote a piece called "Show Me Your Checkbook and I'll Tell You Your Value." And what do I mean by that? You tell me we're both members of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
Yes.
We say we love our sorority. Are we life members? Do we pay the money, or do we just put that red and white on and strut around? Same thing with our churches. We say we love the Lord. Do we tithe? We say that our children are our future. We say that our children are important to us. But what do you pay for it? Tutoring for your child this summer, or a new outfit for yourself? If you look at people's spending, it tells you exactly what they're about. People will tell you what they're about, but their dollars will show you what they're about. And so knowing about all this and making rational decisions, not irrational, I just want that. I've got to have that. And how many times, we've all said it, I really want that. But then the question is, can you afford it? Is it the best use of your resources? Is it reflective of your values? That's financial literacy, understanding what your values are, what your money is. Some people can't tell you what they take home in their paycheck. You need to know that. And what are you saving? Ideally, you're tithing 10%, you're saving 10%, and you've got 10% in like a let me blow it if I want to fund. And you need to have that too, because when you become too strict about budgeting, at some point you just go wild. You go, I've been so good, I'm just going to blow the whole thing. And that's not a great idea either. People have goals. You want to go to Paris, you want to go to Zambia. How are you going to pay for it? You just can't put it on your credit card. Well, you can, but then, you will pay later. So we just have to be, and we as Black people, all too often, unfortunately, not just Black people, a lot of people. So we're operating out of poverty mentality.
What is that?
So basically, we're behaving as if we don't have anything when we know we have. We know if you have a job, you have. Now, it may not be the best job, but whether you work in the White House or at McDonald's, you can save. You can put money aside. And if you put money aside, you're empowering yourself. Otherwise, again, an emergency occurs. What are you going to do? I've seen so many people. People go bankrupt because they had a minor emergency and they end up having to go to the emergency room if they don't have the proper health insurance. So people, be aware of what kind of health insurance you have. Be aware of it and what it covers. But and many people don't have health insurance. And that's unfortunate, and it's a function of our, basically, rancid society that everybody should have health insurance, and everybody doesn't. Many employers don't provide it, or the worst is you have to wait, in some cases, 90 or 120 days before your health insurance kicks in. You just got a new job. But these are things you need to know. You don't need to know this when you get to the emergency room and they say, oh, your insurance doesn't cover this. You need to know that if you get a new job, you need to know what the benefits are yesterday. And you need to maximize that. Many employers will match basically your savings. They'll give you 5% or something like that. Take advantage of that. A lot of people don't even take advantage. That's free money. Free money. So why not take advantage of it? And as I said, many employers will match your savings, but you have to initiate that. Your HR department at your job should be your new best friend. Go there, find what do I have? What are you offering? What can I get? What can I do? And some employers have educational benefits. Take advantage of that. Now, sometimes you have to spend the money, and then they'll reimburse you, and that often becomes an issue. But don't leave money sitting on the table. Financial literacy means looking at every aspect of your financial life, every aspect of your spouse and everybody in your house, their financial life, every aspect, and maximizing it. We're not poor. We may be cash strapped, but we're not poor. And a poverty mentality means you're running around whining about what you don't have instead of maximizing what you do have.
Well, when you talk about financial literacy, there was something that, I missed it in high school, home economics. What was that? And did that help people get on their way? Is it ever, my point is, ultimately, is it ever too early? Are you ever too young to learn about financial literacy?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, many parents give their children an allowance. I remember my mom gave us an allowance, and as soon as we got the little allowance, we had to if we got $1, we had to put a dime away. And this is as young as like 6 and 7 years old. You got the $1, you had to put a dime away, and you had to put a dime in church. And that was just it. And no conversation. And some of the conversations are why we do this. You save and you tithe. And those are just basics. So it was never too early. Home economics used to help us teach people how to budget. Now these days people don't have budget. They just, I take this much money home. I need this for my rent. I need this for this. And then, it's Disneyland. But that's not how to do it. But, no, it's never too early. They're age-appropriate conversations. And I encourage parents to...
Dr. Malvo? Oh.
No, we can't afford that.
Oh, hold on. Well, you cut off. You said you encourage parents to
be transparent with their young people, but not to be oppressive with it. In other words, you can say to your child, we can't afford this. Mom doesn't have money for this. But you shouldn't say, we're poor, we're lacking. You say, we can't afford this. So show, my mom, single mom, 5 of us, and she would occasionally show us her paycheck and say, this is how much our mortgage is. And all the y'all want something. Now, how are we going to do this that's fair? So, because, I want something, my brother would want something. And she says, okay, so how are we going to do this? We have to pay the mortgage. We have to eat. And one time my brother wanted to speed bike. He said, well, we don't have to eat. We looked at him like, you may not have to eat, but we do. But, by oppressor, I mean, parents should not whine. They should not pass a poverty mentality onto their young people, but they should be transparent. This is how much money mom makes. This is what we have to pay. This is what's left over. Who needs it the most? I mean, every September, everybody knew everything because we're going back to school.
Okay.
We used to have to stop out of Goodwill And, we didn't like it, but that's how it was. And we got one new outfit, but everything else we needed, we go right down there to Goodwill, and that's where we got it. And that was a real reality of, our lives. And it's very interesting because even though we had financial limitations, my mother was so generous. She was a social worker, and she would bring people from the Department of Social Services home and give them, I tell you, we got one new outfit at the beginning of the semester. She used to give my stuff away. She'd say, well, Julianne Malvo, you have all this and you have all these blessings. This young lady has never had a new sweater before, so I'm going to give her yours. I did not like that, but it did teach me generosity. And my mother was a very generous person and believed that you had to give. You had to give to others.
So you think there's some moral lessons that we can learn in how we manage our money? Final 2 minutes.
Absolutely. We can learn, first of all, generosity. And, no matter where you are on a totem pole, somebody has more than you, but guess what? Somebody also has less. And you need to think about those who have less. Think about how you can bless them, how your being is a blessing to others. And that's part of financial literacy. What do we do for charity? Not just what we do for our tithing, but also what we do for charity, what we give to others. And I tell you, my mom was just a model of that. And there are lots of lessons we can learn when we learn how to manage our money. And that's what financial literacy is really about, managing your money to the maximum. Minimizing frivolity, but make some room for frivolity. But then not everything can be frivolous, but some things can be. It's all about just like a diet, Peter, just like anything else, it's about balancing. And with financial literacy, you can't balance until you have the knowledge to know what you have. I'm telling you, there's people who don't know what they have or who get caught up by emotion. And I've worked with many charitable organizations, and I can't tell you how many times in the heat of the moment, someone will pledge $1,000, and then we'll come back, and then it's say, I really can't afford that. But why'd you pledge it in the first place? But they got caught up in the emotion of the moment. And the most important thing with your money is to separate your money from your emotions. Because we make emotional decisions about money, and we really should be making rational decisions about money. Easier said than done, and we all get caught up. But at the end of the day, you got to come back and rebalance. And then that's what good financial literacy is about. Save. Don't just sit.
And I tell you, we'll also be talking, as Dr. Malvo, you really took us to this point. You don't have to have high net worth to really figure out how to manage your money. We know things are more expensive than ever before. Absolutely. There's still a way for you to make it. Megan Financial, one of the sponsors of this show, they manage the monies, the salaries of people who are working class, people who are working poor. That's what I enjoy about them more than anything. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. You mean to tell me you want to take care of people who don't make a lot of money, who don't have a lot of money? They still need to retire. They still need to know how to manage their money. Don't be allergic to it, everybody. Oh, my goodness.
Exactly.
Don't be allergic to it. We're going to have Dr. Julianne Malvo with us this afternoon, along with this illustrious panel, led by her, and, of course, on the Joan Esposito Show, right over at the Rubenstein Home at the University of Chicago on 60th, 1201 East 60th. It's 60th in the Midway, everybody. Get on over there. You're going to have a great time. It starts at 3 o'clock. All right. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show. The first woman to be governor of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa, right here on Nelson Mandela International Day. Can't wait to talk with you on the Santita Jackson Show. Back in just a moment. Hold on, Dr. Malvo. I want you to at least say hello, okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, so just stand by. Oh. Oh boy. Let's see. Let me do this. Oh. All right. Sorry, Dr. Malvo, trying to pull something up, and it's always trying to pull something up when you are looking for something else. But very excited.
Do you do your show from home or do you go to a studio?
What? Oh, I do it from home now. Yeah. Yeah. There's so much change during COVID.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things that did change.
Ms. Jackson, I just spoke to a gentleman who works with the premiere, and he said he's going to try to get her hotel room number and send it over to you.
Okay, fantastic.
So when he sends it, if you could please text it to me, I'll go ahead and reach out to her right away.
Okay, and did you get from him the proper pronunciation of her name?
I'm sorry, it slipped my mind.
Would you call him back?
Yes, ma'am. I'll do it right now. Okay.
Oh, bless his heart. But she is, I know it. I just want to make sure that I've got it right. So there we go.
It's 5 o'clock.
Hello?
I'm here.
Okay, I just heard something. It sounded odd.
My computer talks.
Oh, okay. I was like, girl, you're frightening me to death.
No, on the hour it says what time it is. I don't know how to silence it. So we just said it's 5 o'clock. That would be West Coast time.
Okay, hold on. Okay. All right. And so he is going to send me this. Okay, I will be waiting for her number. I'm going to find this. Okay. Okay, excuse me.
Okay, the way he said her first name is Namusa, and then her last name is Dubé N with a clicking sounding noise. So Dubé N Day. N Day.
Whew.
Yeah, it's a tricky one.
That click is like.
Yeah, so Namusa Dubé N Day.
Well, you did it.
You can do it too, Miss Jackson. I believe in you.
Yeah.
He also said he sent you a message via WhatsApp.
I am looking for it. And call him back and tell him it has not come back. It has not come through yet. And I know the hotel. If he could just give us the room number.
Yes, he said he was trying to send that over to you as well.
Yeah, I don't. It hasn't come.
Okay, I'll try to get that information from him directly.
Okay, if we just get the number.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, thank you, hon. Okay, I just wanted you to be able to say hello to her, Dr. Malvo.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, there it is. Okay. Okay. Boy, WhatsApp is a whole lot. Okay. Mm-mm-mm.
So, Ms. Jackson, I'm going to look up the hotel.
Oh, I just sent you the number.
Oh, okay, great.
Mm-hmm. Not the room number, but the number to the hotel, for sure.
Okay.
Okay, so let me do this.
I'm going to go ahead and call her as soon as we go live. We're about to go live in less than a minute. So as soon as you're live, I'll go ahead and give her a call at the hotel.
Okay. Give me that click again.
Look.
Oh boy, I just have never practiced.
Dubé and Dave. We have 10 seconds.
Okay, let me get this.
No Musa,
Stand by.
Dube, Dube.
Oh, Chris.
No Musa, Dube, Dube.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children we can raise. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show, WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. It is a joy to be with you, coming to you from AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I met Representative Ilhan Omar. She's for Omar. She spoke at our convention yesterday, and she was magnificent. I can't wait to have her on the show, everybody. Oh, Dr. Malfoy, it's been a great convention. And it is Nelson Mandela International Day. It is his birthday, July 10th, of course, July 17th, July 18th. Great things happen on this day. And we're so excited to have the first woman to be the governor, the premier of the KwaZulu-Natal province with us. She'll be joining us in just a few minutes to talk about the significance of this holiday and the challenges that face women today, not just in South Africa, but really all over the world, and how we need to come together and really resolve these issues. If you look at the wealth gap and poverty and the struggles of our children, is tied directly to what women are not able to get. So we're going to be talking about that, and of course with this writer's strike and the actor's strike in Los Angeles, SAG-AFTRA, it's a mess. They want to pay actors $182 to capture their image forever, their images forever, and their voices forever, and pay them no more. And then they can reiterate these images and these voices at will. You won't need actors anymore. We got to talk about that with John Nichols. So let's get to some of these headlines, everybody. We've got a lot going on today on the Santita Jackson Show. Call me at 773-763-9278. What did you learn from the great Madiba? What did you learn from Nelson Mandela? It is his birthday today, everybody. It is his birthday today. Poor air quality. If you look outside, it is hazy. We'll have a high of 74 degrees in Chicago today. I have 84 degrees in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And if you look up in the sky, the sun is out, but it is hazy because millions of people all around the United States are under air quality alerts as Canadian wildfires persist, everybody. Several areas are seeing a decreased visibility. Chicago's at the top of the list. Off and on for the past 2 weeks, we've had the worst air quality on Earth. Chicago, Detroit, New York, St. Louis, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, Cleveland, all over the place. The entire state of New York has been under an air quality health advisory. So what does that mean, everybody? It means you need to be careful. If you want to exercise outside, be very, very careful. In fact, try to be indoors. Just take care of yourselves, everybody. Now we're also dealing with extreme heat. Blisteringly high temperatures, according to the CNN report, are being reported all across the world, breaking records on multiple continents and, of course, on the four corners in the United States, from Texas to the lower Mississippi Valley and South Florida. It is very, very difficult, everybody. If you are thirsty, that means you are already having a problem. So stay hydrated and get to the centers where you can cool off. Russian forces launched airstrikes in Ukraine, the southern port city of Odessa today, in response to Kiev's attack on the Crimea bridge earlier this week. The strikes continue as these two countries are at war, and NATO's in it. Everybody, think about that. $3.7 billion bridge is strategically important because it links Russia with Crimea. But they are at war, and we need to have peace. African leadership, for their portion, have offered something that's been agreeable. And in fact, the United States has been encouraging Ukraine to keep up the fight. Why? Amid soaring temperatures, some Texas troopers, get this everybody, at the U.S.-Mexico border were told to push migrants back into the Rio Grande River. And they were ordered not to give them water. Oh, wow. According to this new report, emails shared with CNN detailed the account of a trooper medic at the border who called out the inhumane treatment of migrants. The trooper said they were given orders to push people back into the water to go back to Mexico, and they were ordered not to give them water. That's got to be a violation of some international convention. It's a horrible thing, everybody. Actors and writers remain on the picket lines. We'll be talking with John Nichols about this at the bottom of the hour. For the first time, Hollywood has been shut down. It's the first time in more than 60 years. The actors and the writers are on strike. Good luck on coming up with new product without the people to write and enact these roles. And those are just some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. We are having our financial literacy seminar. As you've been listening to Dr. Julian Malveaux talk about that today. That's from 3 to 5 at the Rubenstein Center at 60th and the Midway Plaza at the University of Chicago. Come on out there, everybody. Just come on in. It's going to be great. We're all going to be there. Joan Esposito will be broadcasting live. And we want to hear from you. We want to see you. We're going to have all of our young people, Dr. Malveaux, who are going to be going on the HBCU tour. It is a requirement that they attend this seminar. We're excited about this. But I am excited and honored to have this woman with us today. I heard her speak yesterday, and I was so impressed. And I asked my dear, dear friend, Chris Keys, who's been living in South Africa, this Morehouse man for years. I said, I want to talk to her. I was so honored to be able to meet her. He said, well, you should have her on the show. It is Mandela Day, of course. Nelson Mandela's birthday is today. And this international holiday is celebrated all over the world, celebrating peace, celebrating so many things. And we're honored to have the first woman to be the premier, which is the governor in the United States, of the KwaZulu-Natal, Nomusa Dube, and I cannot get this click. I have never been able to get this, Your Excellency. So please help me with this. Help me to get it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a little bit. It's like glue. It's when you kiss,
Oh, now wait a minute. Now all you had to do was tell me that. Wait a minute. Why are you making it so complicated for me? He says it's like a kiss. I'm like, I can do that all day long. Yeah. And that's the sound my parents make as old as I am. That's the sound they make whenever they come here, give me sugar. Okay.
Exactly.
But we're so honored that you came in for this convention. And indeed, you've made history. And as women around the world are beginning to do, because now we're beginning to govern. It has been said that you would not have wars if more women held elective office, because women would not send their children to war. And so, but we've got a wealth gap that we see in the United States that you have in South Africa. We see an opportunity when you are in that seat of power, when you're in that seat of influence, to really give voice to our issues. And so I'm honored that you're with us today to talk about uh, this magnificent position that you occupy and what you see in terms of leadership. But first, Mandela Day. What is it, and how can we best honor the great Madiba today?
Good morning once more, Santita. Good morning to you and also your listeners at home. It is an honor for me to be in your show here today. Indeed, it is a Madiba Day, and being a first woman of a province, or a state that has got more than 12 million, communities, it is something that has been a great achievement and a strides for women of African, descent in particular. You would know that it hasn't been long. I mean, it's been more than 30 years now. It's close to 30 years since democracy in our country, and it has taken that much for women to be recognized for the contributions that they are making. But today we are celebrating a Nelson Mandela Day, which is a day to do good. It is a day to make difference in someone else's life. It is about selflessness. It's about humility. It's about Ubuntu. And I am because you are. So it is about making a change. Nelson Mandela devoted 67 years of his life to humanity, fighting for injustice, equality, human rights, dignity, for vulnerable, gender equality, and the rights of women and girls, the rights of children. He fought against poverty. He fought against discrimination and promoting of social justice. So I want to say that maybe many here in America and other parts where your program reaches may never comprehend how brutal the apartheid system was to the black people in South Africa. Madiba, with the support of many other people around the world, including our leaders and icons like Reverend Jesse Jackson, dislodged that system in South Africa. And today, South Africa is a free country. That is where we are dedicating this time as the United Nations declared this day, which is a Nelson Mandela birthday. Oh, by the way, it's a day after your birthday, a Nelson Mandela Day. It is an important day, and what a day, really, for people like yourself, myself, to say, why are we here, and why do we exist? How do we help other neighbors? How do we go down to the elderly, to the people without anything? Provide hot soup, provide food in the icy grip of cold and poverty, and there is so much that we can do in our little ways. How do you provide mentorship to somebody else? How do you become, a good example to somebody who's lost hope out there of even getting a job or even getting all his or her things sorted out in life? So this is what really is happening on this day.
I am so excited that you mentioned that, because really, it's amazing that Nelson Mandela, while president of South Africa, was still on the terrorist list here in the United States. That, the fight for freedom is still something that is so unsettling to people. But I would have to extend that to the fight for equality for women. It's still very, very unsettling to so many people. I mean, how can we move the needle? What should we be doing as we, because Nelson Mandela and Winnie Mandela and Walter Sisulu and all of these wonderful people who I had the privilege, quite frankly, of knowing, growing up with, when all of you from the ANC were considered to be outlaws. I think it's amazing how things shift, Your Excellency, because there has been a shift, because you were outlaws up until a very short time ago. I mean, how have you made that shift from there into governance? Because it's one thing to protest apartheid, and you're still living with the vestiges of that, just as we live with the vestiges of Jim Crow America, and it's something that you have to continue to fight. How do you govern now? I mean, how do white people not feel frightened? How do Black people begin to feel empowered?
Oh no, definitely. Sure. It will take how your former president Barack Obama wraps it up nicely, and he says Mandela, born during World War One. Far from the corridors of power, a boy raised herding cattle and tortured by the elders, taught by the elders in the Tembu tribe. Madiba emerged as the last great liberator of the 20th century. Like Gandhi, he would lead a resistance movement that has to start a yield of prospect that did not have a prospect of success. Like Dr. King, he would give potent voice to the claims of the oppressed and the moral necessity of racial, justice. He would endure the brutal, imprisonment just because the time of Kennedy and, many that reached the final days of the Cold War, emerging from prison without force of arms. He would, like Abraham Lincoln, hold his country together when it is threatened to break apart. And like America's founding fathers, he would erect a constitutional order to preserve freedom for future generations. And I think that the commitment that we have to make now is that in government, there is still a number of people that are still not emancipated economically. And we are here to strengthen those bonds with the diaspora, because many of our communities out there are still unemployed. In South Africa, we have a huge, problem of unemployment. And this is as a result of many of those years where Black people were excluded from the mainstream economy. So that is why it is so important for us that we hold hands with the diaspora to celebrate, the life of, our heroes like Reverend Jesse Jackson, and also to ensure that in government, we get leaders, ethical leaders, but we also get ethical, public service that is able to understand that it hasn't taken, somebody walking at the park to be where we are. For us to take it from this step now to govern and to make sure that people get those services that they need. We still have people without water. We still have people without proper shelter. And all of that need resources, needs for us to do the same mobilization that we did when we were mobilizing the global community to fight against the apartheid and the oppression. Now we are trying to mobilize everybody to say, please work with us, help us to mobilize infrastructure funding, help us to mobilize other businesses to come and invest in the township, in the rural areas. And that is how we are going to be able to be leaders in government that are able not to just talk, but to have people, to have something on their table, because people are not going to eat slogans. People are not going to eat words, but they want to have a bread and butter. They want to see their children prosper. They want to see, themselves being somebody in their lifetime, and because that will bring dignity even more than just having to be liberated. We want economic liberation more than anything else, so that everybody can then be liberated.
Are you looking for, as you reach out, as you are very committed to outreach to the African diaspora, are you looking for teachers? Are you looking for academics? Are you looking for business people? Are you looking for artists? Who are you looking for?
Definitely, we are looking for that. We are looking for architects. We are looking for doctors. We are looking for entrepreneurs who are going to share with us how are they making it in their economies. We are looking for small and medium enterprises to open opportunities for our people in South Africa, but also in KwaZulu-Natal. We're looking for business people who want to invest in hospitality, business people who want to invest in infrastructure development, people who are going to help us. How do we fight crime? I know that even yourself, you still have problems with crime, but with us, it's a different thing because it's not just crime. We have got a gender-based violence that is killing women and children every day, that is killing elderly people every day. So we're looking for people who are going to help us. How do we structure ourselves in a manner that will ensure that our women, whenever they walk, they are safe from this brutal killings, that they are safe in their offices, because gender-based violence, it's not just out there, it is there in the boardroom. You see it when you get to those boardrooms. You see it. I feel it myself every day of my life. Even as a woman, governor, I feel that some of the things and some of the comments people would make are not the comments that people used to make when a man were still governors. We've had men that have been governors since our country obtained democracy in 1994. But today, people think that just because it's a woman, everything should be done, today. Everything should be correct. That is why, for me, it is important that I go out to people like yourself who understand, the history of discrimination, to say, help us rebuild our country. Help me rebuild my province, KwaZulu-Natal. There is endless opportunities out there. My people are really our best asset to be able to move us from where we are to the future, where everybody can say, indeed, I can see that this liberation has brought me something different.
I think it's important for us to understand the spiritual attack that we've been under, and therefore you see the physical expression of that with the gender-based violence, with the violence against children. Every action does merit an equal and opposite reaction, and I think we've got to think about that, talk about that, Your Excellency, because we've got to get well as we get better. And we're not going to get better really until we get well. I thank God for you. And I am praying for you. And what we're going to do is work together, because we have a lot of academics. I had Dr. Julianne Malvo wanted to wait and listen to your interview just up close and personal. She's an MIT trained economist, one of the leaders of Rainbow Push. And we're going to connect you to her. Dr. Malvo, you still there?
I'm here, and I just wanted to greet my sister and thank her for being with us. I know that you traveled a long way to be with us, and so we're very grateful for your presence and also for your leadership, not only in your province, but also for women around the world.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much.
And one of the things that we can do, I'm going to connect you to her, because, Your Excellency, she's the president emeritus of the Bennett College for Women. And we need to develop a Bennett College for Women in South Africa, a place where our girls and young women can go and become and feel empowered. So we're going to do that. We learned a lot. We have learned a lot in this diasporic experience, and we need to share that with each other. I'm sending you so much love today. We're going to do this. Because you came here.
Oh, thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for that. That is what we are looking for, because the exposure and if we can hold hands as sisters, as mothers, and show those young girls out there and show those women out there who are out in the cold, that, it's not that somebody is not listening. It's not that somebody is not looking, but there are women out there who are reaching out their hands, who are saying, hold me, I will help you through this journey, because I know what it is, to be out there in the cold, to feel that nobody is listening every day as you strive, to put the plates on your table, as you strive to put your children to the university through the university systems. So we would really appreciate, that kind of support that we can get from our women, and I'm glad that you are talking about, because I have been hosting a series of women, in BRICS, where we are also talking about how do we ensure as well that with AGOA, women participate in those opportunities. But when it comes to our sisters here in the United States of America, let us have that pact, which will have South Africa, but South African women in particular, to work with AGOA to ensure that we are stronger together and empower each other and trade with each other and educate each other through, those very difficult times that we are all facing. I know that it is post-COVID. A lot of businesses were battered, were butchered by COVID-19. But for us, it's even more than, at that time. We are calling for, the 365 days of summer in our province, with ensuring that we have clean beaches. We've got live game lives. So there's a lot of that we can do as women in energy, women in academia, and a lot of other ideas that would appreciate to discuss, that would help, move that needle.
We're going to do it. We got a whole lot of women we can share with you, and you got a lot that you can share with us. I'm sending you so much love. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes.
Thank you very much.
Oh, and there's an infection preventionist I'm going to bring to your attention. She's a young Black woman under 40, registered nurse, PhD, college lecturer, and she has been the head of the largest infection preventionist organization in the world. And we have a lot of there. We have some resources. Dr. Malvo's resources are endless, and we're going to brainstorm. We're going to form a brain trust, and we're going to brainstorm, and we're going to make some things happen for you and for our girls. You have our full support, my beloved sister.
Oh, thank you so much for that, my sister. Thank you so much, even to your listeners and to all that are listening, that are reaching out. We really, really appreciate that. We strengthen those bonds with the people of African descent and diaspora to celebrate as well the life and times of our Reverend Jesse Jackson, to personally thank him for what he did for us in South Africa to fight against the party. We will discussing those partnerships of trade to further install the concept for intra-Africa trade and ensuring that they support each other as Black folks, not to exclude others, but to solidify our economies as well. Thank you very much for that.
Oh, we're going to do that. I'm going to see you this morning, and we have a lot that we're going to do together. I'm just claiming it, and we're just going to move forward. That's what we're going to do.
No, thank you very much. God bless you. Thank you.
God bless you. God bless you, Dr. Malvo. I'm going to see you all shortly.
Dr. Malvo's off.
Okay. All right. John Nichols, how are you?
I am well. How are you?
Oh, I am doing well. We've had quite the show this morning already. boy, oh boy, the more I've read about this,
sure.
the more I've read about this strike, because I'm a member of these unions. I have been so hot about this actor strike. $182. I'm like, seriously? These people are horrifying. I need you just to outline all of this. But let me just say this.
About the actors strike.
I am so glad that you were in Chicago in the context of the Jackson campaigns. That was so wonderful. Could you speak to that briefly when we get on the air?
Of course, I'm delighted to. I've been on a good high since Saturday because of all the things that were said and done, and the spirit of the day, and also your great singing at the close. It was really a wonderful day.
Oh my gosh, we loved it.
And everything else that's extended from it. This is all the gatherings matter, all these points that we come together, but some of them are very special. And I think this is one of those.
I've had 2 unexpected reunions with you this year, because I had, the 40th anniversary had almost escaped me. When I got the text from you, you were like, look, I am coming to Kevin's service. I mean, I started to cry. I said, well, I said, is this what it's going to take for us to get together with each other? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, get in the same place. Well, we're all busy people, but that's the odd thing about when we lose someone. I think it becomes very clear, right? That we've got to maintain those ties. And so sadly, it's often funerals and memorial services that remind us of that.
Oh, yeah.
It's very, very good to be there for Kevin. I loved being down there, and again, the spirit of that event was just wonderful.
It really was. But Dwight remarked that what was really surprising to him. He said these white farmers who came in. He said the fact that he said what was surprising to
10 seconds.
him. Thank you so much. Was how they felt empowered by Reverend, because there's a hierarchy in the white world as well. Yeah. Stand by, please.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. Boy, oh boy, thank you to Your Excellency, the first woman to be the premier of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa. Boy, we've got a lot of work to do, and I'm very excited to be able to do that. It's always a joy on Tuesdays at the bottom of the second hour of this show to have this brilliant giant of a man with us, John Nichols. Someone remarked, wait a minute, you have John Nichols on your show? And they were very serious, and they should have been. They were like, well, that's big. I said, and I'm honored that he is part of the show. That's big. Really, every week? I said, every week. And indeed, when my father has been hospitalized here, really working on his Parkinson's, when he's been in, in-house therapy, several of his doctors, one week it just threw him, about 3 or 4 doctors, physicians came to him, and they said, I listen to your daughter's show every day, love it, and I absolutely love John Nichols to a person. So I had to share that with you once again, because it just happened once again. And so I'm so glad, I'm glad to be able to share that, but I'm also very, very happy that we were able to get together this weekend at the Jackson 84-88 Southern Crusade reunion. What was wonderful was that you saw that we are a family. And if you looked in the room, you had people from every conceivable background. We might have started in very different places, but we all ended up in those Jackson campaigns together, and we've become family. But what was striking, John, aside from your anointed remarks, was watching the number of white farmers who had come back. Dwight McKee made that observation. He said, he said, what's surprising to me is that how empowered they felt by Reverend Jackson, because they have been overlooked. They have been put at the bottom of the pile. And the fact is, Reverend Jackson's "I Am Somebody" message reached them and resonated with them too. So talk to us about, before we get into this actor strike, because you talk about people who are living up under the boot and who are being asked to give everything while these people make money hand over fist. Got to talk about that. What was your takeaway from this weekend?
Yeah. Well, there were so many takeaways. It's hard to boil it down to one. But I think that Dwight's observation was a very important one. That you did see a substantial contingent of folks from Iowa and Missouri who made the trip to Chicago to honor the memory of the 83, 84, 87, 88 campaigning on behalf of the Rainbow. And the reason that they came, I think, is multifold. One thing that we need to understand is that celebrity, however it comes, whatever form it takes, whether you're an actor, an actress, whether you're a politician or a well-known pastor, celebrity has power in our society. It can often be entertaining or encouraging. It can also be sometimes negative, and we've seen that. But one of the powers is that it allows an individual to focus attention on the circumstances of people who would otherwise be neglected. And one of the things that Reverend Jackson did in 83 and 84 as he was starting to campaign for the presidency at a time when, most people were not expecting his campaign would be all that successful. Mm-hmm. But he still had that prominence, that celebrity, if you will. And instead of focusing it on himself, he tended very much, especially in those early stages, to focus it on others, on people who were not getting much attention, who were really left at the sidelines. And one of the groups that certainly fell into that category was working farmers, family farmers, often people who were struggling to get by. And there was a farm crisis going on, and it was very neglected by Washington. Ronald Reagan neglected it. So too did many Democrats. And here was Jesse Jackson, someone who was identified in the minds of much of the media as very urban, right? A person of Chicago, although obviously Reverend Jackson had rural roots as well. But here was Reverend Jackson coming out to farm country and standing with farmers in rural areas and showing solidarity with them. And that did two things. Number one, it made them feel that someone who mattered cared about them. But number two, it also brought attention to their struggle. And I do think that these farmers remember that, and rightly so. The fact of the matter is farmers still are neglected. Black farmers and white farmers and Latinx farmers across this country, Native American farmers. There are many people who work the land and struggle to get by, often in poverty as intense or as difficult as in our big cities, and yet little attention is paid to them. And so Reverend Jackson did that, and I think that's why they showed up. And I would note also that as you looked around the room in Chicago on Saturday, you saw people from all sorts of backgrounds, industrial workers and anti-poverty workers and AIDS activists and LGBTQ community activists and people who came from all sorts of different backgrounds who said, yeah, I remember in 1984 and 1988 when nobody else was paying attention, Reverend Jackson was there for us.
Absolutely. I mean, well, moving forward, I can, if Reverend could, he would be walking the picket lines with the writers of Hollywood.
Of course he would.
And of course he is SAG-AFTRA because he's done so much television anyway.
Yeah.
But they would do, he would be there, I think, just in solidarity. And that's one of the things that you heard from everybody on Friday and Saturday. They said, it's the solidarity that we got from him that was so sincere. That is so sincere. So,
well, if I can just interrupt you for 1 second, I tell you that right now, Reverend Jackson, if his health was a little bit better, although I saw his health on Saturday to be very, very good, saw a lot of strength in the man. But if his health was a little better, he'd be so busy right now on picket lines, he'd barely have time to do anything else except maybe pray. and that is because we've got the Teamsters who are about to potentially go on launch a major strike, one of the biggest strikes in American history. You've got the writers for Hollywood who are already on strike, have been out for several weeks. You've got all sorts of other workers who are either in strike situations or on the cusp of strike situations.
Just sent the text.
This is really the summer of strikes. And that, some people could see that as a negative. I actually see it as a very positive thing, and I think Reverend would as well, that this is a time when workers in many, many industries, having gone through COVID, having gone through all the struggles that we've seen in recent years, are saying, hold it. The wealthy, the billionaires, the corporations are reaping immense profits, and the working class, working people are struggling just to get by. Something's got to change, and the strike is the tool that working people have to say, we withhold our labor so that you will pay attention to us, respond to our reasonable demands, and give us more of a say in our workplace. And so, yes, I think Reverend would be there. I think he'd be on picket lines all over the country, barely able to switch from a Teamsters sign to a Writers Union sign to a SAG-AFTRA sign.
It's interesting. It just seems like it's the zeitgeist. People are protesting and pushing for their rights all over the world. It seems like it's just, there's something in the air. It's something in the air. We have had an interview, in the prior segment. In fact, she's still here. The first woman to be governor. She is the premier of the KwaZulu-Natal province in South Africa. And she wanted to listen because, of course, the Jackson campaign
she just dropped
was something that they really paid attention to in South Africa. I mean, after the campaign, I remember we were in Paris just a few months later, and we walked into a Diana Ross concert, and the auditorium, the stadium exploded. Jesse. And that was not something, my father always taught us not to get carried away with the celebrity of it. He was like, if God lifts you up in this way, this is so that you can lift up the issue, right? And that's really what it's been about. He says, don't get excited about that. And I'm so grateful for that. Can
I mention, by the way? Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, please don't.
I just want to mention that we talk about all these other things and all these people that were, raised up by the 84 and 88 campaigns. I can tell you that I think the whole issue of apartheid, the whole issue of South Africa, was transformed by the 84 campaign.
Why?
By 88, you already had seen so much progress. Well, remember, in 83, 84, Ronald Reagan was on something of a high. He had come in and had a lot of struggles, but he was really asserting himself in foreign policy. And Ronald Reagan, as President of the United States, along with Margaret Thatcher, was showing no real sympathy for Nelson Mandela and for the anti-apartheid movement. In fact, you had Dick Cheney in Congress who would go on to be Vice President of the United States, voting against resolutions in sympathy with Nelson Mandela. And these were people who were trying to other the anti-apartheid movement, to turn it into something dangerous or threatening or bad. And here you had a prominent American figure, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, stepping up and saying, no, the anti-apartheid movement is a moral movement. It is an ethical movement. It is a practical and necessary movement. And he wove it into his campaign so deeply that I think it transformed how Democrats saw the anti-apartheid movement. And it moved beyond just a movement of labor activists and black activists and others into a universal social, racial, economic justice movement. In the U.S., it became woven into all of the and I do think that was transformational. I think from the 1984 campaign onward, you could not, as a Democrat or even as a moderate Republican, fail to be in solidarity with South Africa. And so I think that what Reverend Jackson did in that campaign was popularize the anti-apartheid movement in profound ways. And he wasn't alone. There were people struggling, students and others who had been working on it for years. But suddenly you had somebody who, in debates and in speeches and every setting, and I think that was a very big deal.
Well, it is a big deal because you can imagine if he had been running and had not mentioned it, it would not have.
It would have been.
That movement wouldn't have gotten the lift. He used that, but that's the point.
It would have been devastating.
That's right. Yeah. He used that platform to lift that. And remember Nelson Mandela on our rolls. Our CIA helped to get him arrested. It was the MI6 and the CIA who came together and got him in jail. Got him in prison for 27 and a half years. I mean, the fact is, this man, he was a terrorist. So, I mean, on the books. So, but then that's
what they said.
That's what they look. I'm saying on the books. Dr. King was a communist on the books. I mean, but let's talk about that. I don't think we're paying enough attention to this because I think there's a consistency here. There's a tie, John, with SAG and AFTRA, and when you hear that these people want these working actors, many of whom have college debt. They want them to go into this booth and get physically scanned. They want to take your voice, pay you $182, let you go on. I mean, that's an oversimplification, but that's a core point. And that's the end of that.
Not simplification.
All right. Talk to me. What's going on here?
Well, and you're focusing in on such an important part of the SAG-AFTRA strike. This is the thing that, and I know that listeners to this show are the most informed and engaged people in the country, so we don't have to explain much. But it is important to understand that several weeks ago, writers for Hollywood went on strike. And they're a much smaller group, about 11, 12,000. And they went on strike saying, look, we're very, very concerned about the future of our industry. A, we want fair pay and fair treatment, but B, we want a place at the table to define how this industry is going to evolve in a moment of incredible technological change, incredible progress in many ways, but also threats. And the writers raised that concern up. Now the actors have joined them on strike. Some different issues, but many of the same issues. Again, this struggle to define the entertainment industry in America and in the world. And remember, entertainment is a powerful thing. We think of it as, something you may laugh at or cry about. But the truth is that these films, these TV shows, these performances, these are money-making endeavors. And the industries that produce them reap tens of billions, tens and hundreds of billions of dollars. They're very, very wealthy, very, very powerful industries. The people who actually bring the creativity to it, the writers, the actors, the actresses, the people who work backstage, these are the people who make it happen. And yet, the powerful interests that control these industries, the CEOs and the investors, they're always looking for ways in which they can take the image, the voice, the power, the creativity of the individual and monetize it, right, to make money off it. And now, with the rise of artificial intelligence, with the rise of all sorts of technological shifts and automation, it is possible to take the image of a person, take the voice of a person, take their creativity, and separate it from them, and then continue to use it, right? So in the old days, if you were somebody who voiced a commercial, right, you would record the commercial, and then you'd be paid for that, and then you are, in a sense, separated from it, right? But as you had the evolution of different commercials, they'd bring you back and pay you to do another one, or a different film. If you did the second version of it, they'd pay you to do the second version. Now with artificial intelligence, because it can literally separate out words and put words together in different forms and form a sentence, form an image, you have a situation where if you record an actor or an actress and get a good number of their words, get a good number of their images, you can then repurpose that and reposition it without them. And what the actors and actresses are simply saying is, look, if you're going to use our voices, our images, our talent, we want to be paid for it. We want to be a part of this. And as this evolves, we want to be at the table and determining where the line is drawn between the human and the machine. Now, that may sound very, futuristic and outer space, but that's the moment we're at. And I think the best way to understand it is with orchestras at theaters. It is easy and possible to use recorded backup music for singers and for performers. But if you do that, the musicians are only paid once, right? The recording is done, and unless they get residuals of some kind, that's the end of that. We have, because of contracts, because of labor contracts, requirements that symphonies and backing musicians be used in concert settings and be used in theater settings. And that's a way of making sure that the creative people continue to be paid and that they have a part of the process. The same is going to have to be done in different forms, but with the same basic concept in Hollywood. And that's what the actors and actresses are saying. We simply want to be paid for the work that we do. We want to be paid for our images, for our voices, for our talent. And as the process changes, as everything changes, we want to be at the table. And the last thing I'll say about this, and Fran Drescher, the head of SAG-AFTRA, says this, it's really important. She says, we're not here just struggling for ourselves. We're struggling for every industry because artificial intelligence is going to change every industry. We know that to be the case. And so we're out here on the picket lines now so that people work as architects or engineers or lawyers or in, community settings, in teaching, maybe on a radio station, that people all across this country have a say in how artificial intelligence changes their lives.
Well, we have to be very careful. I was watching Anderson Cooper, and there was an experiment. Well, no, it was CNN. It wasn't his show. It was a CNN package, a segment, in which this reporter, artificial intelligence regenerated his voice, and they called his mother and father. The father was none the wiser. The mother said, "Okay, son," and she said, after they found out that they had been tricked, the mother said, "I knew there was something, but I couldn't put my finger on it." And the father said, "I thought it was right."
Yeah.
No, you can read into that what you will, but I just...
Well, but we're seeing this all over the place. And here's the interesting thing. In music, in rock and roll and soul and funk and other areas.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
John Lennon.
And they're rewriting songs using, like arrangements of the words. And Nick Cave, the British, Australian-born, but British resident artist and singer, somebody sent him a song that was done in his style. And I looked at the lyrics, and they really did look like, lyrics that came from him. But he saw it, and he was furious. And he said, it really does look like what I do. But there's none of the heart and the soul, right? The core of it isn't there. And that's what we're struggling for, that core of humanity, to make sure that it is asserted. And the forces that will make that assertion, we can't necessarily do that as individuals. It's ultimately going to be done by our unions. And that's why the SAG-AFTRA strike is so important and why we should show solidarity for it, no matter whether we're anywhere near the entertainment industry. It's our struggle as well.
And the struggle continues. Victory is certain if you continue to struggle. Last minute belongs to you, John Nichols.
I'm so happy for this show and so honored to have been with you over the last 2 days, Santita. The fact is that what we did in Chicago was meaningful because we were there in person and, with one another. But this show takes all the power of recent days with the rainbow and brings it into focus for thousands and tens of thousands of people who listen in. And we get to talk about fundamental issues. And so I guess my last minute is a compliment and a thank you, because I'm feeling in a very celebratory mode for all the difficulties that we have in these times. I think this is a moment in which we recognize that we know people and we are engaged with people who are in a great struggle. And that great struggle is for economic and social and racial justice and for peace. And what an honor and what a pleasure to be walking that road with you.
Well, we have walked it together, and I tell you, when the show is but an idea, all I had to do was call John Nicholas, and he said, I'm on board. Love you, my dear brother. I'm Santita Jackson.
I love
everybody.
you.
Oh, I love you. Thank you, Alex, for a great show. Sending everybody much love. See you today at 3 o'clock at 60th and the Midway, right at the University of Chicago for our financial literacy seminar. You don't want to miss it. See you tomorrow, everybody. See you this afternoon. Love you. God bless. Okay, John, I'm letting you go, my sweet.
I gotta go. I'm so sorry, but really, what a wonderful show. This was great, by the way. Great conversation. I think we got really deep into some of the AI stuff that even now isn't being well explained by the media. So I'm so glad we did that.
They're not explaining it. They're not. I mean,
yeah,
no, they're not. And no, they're not.
It's more than people, and it's more than people can handle in short doses. You need a long, good explanation, or it gets scary and it gets overwhelming. And so we should probably come back to it sometime.
No, well, I mean, I think very soon, in the coming days.
Yeah.
Because I think that people need to understand what that's going to look like.
I do.
Yeah.
I should run.
Okay, love you. God
love and
bless
solidarity to you. Give the Reverend a great hug for me.
I will do that. I'm going to see him shortly.
And your mom as well.
Oh, thank you.